A look back at My Little Pony Season 9. Video is not intended for children under the age of 13 years old. The comment section has been turned off. It's because YouTube did it, not me. I am an adult, not a child. Hello and welcome back. It is me, Daisy Spines. I will be covering the first half of Season 9 today, so we will keep any discussions in the comments around that. Additionally, massive spoilers. If you don't wish to be spoiled, go check out the playlist linked in the description. It will have the episodes I'm talking about, which are the first 13 from this half. A little bit of background. It was announced all the way back in February 17th, 2018, at the International American Toy Fair in New York, that the 9th season would be done. It was confirmed that it would have the standard amount of episodes, 26, and at the following year's Toy Fair, it was confirmed that it would be the final season of the series. It was also confirmed that the writing for these episodes started back in 2017. We will get to our characterization. There's a lot of characters, so we're gonna have to rapid fire through these groups. Our first group is the main 7. Twilight, our main character, gets a pretty good showing. She is a primary focus throughout most of this due to her status of main character. She's quite well portrayed in my opinion. Yes, she does freak out and have like Twily Nana's moments or Twilighting moments, but she's an adult who struggles with anxiety and has for years, so that's nothing big for her character. I don't think it undoes any of her growth. We have Fluttershy. She doesn't get too many starring roles throughout this. She is helpful in the premiere episodes, and she does make another more notable appearance in Sweet and Smoky, working with the baby dragon. It pretty much evenly represents Fluttershy and how she's grown to be throughout the season, so if you know what Fluttershy is like from like post season 7 to now, it's that Fluttershy. There's nothing really new to do with this character. Rainbow Dash here is pretty well represented. I found that she has more good moments than bad. She's one of those characters that can run on the easily hated side because she can be very rash, and the writers can portray her to be not very level-headed on a regular basis. But here she's very well done. For Applejack, she gets a few moments for sure. I like how she helps out with the plants right at the start of the season. It was really cool to see a flashback to her past and hear about how she was as a child. I thought it was cool that we got some more about her parents with that in a way by just showing them with Apple Bloom, confirming she's not Apple Bloom's mom. We have Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie is one of the standout characters for me as far as when she does get attention on screen, because I think they have accounted for most of the earlier season pitfalls of this character and really done a good job fleshing her out and having her grow. But this is something that happens with all comedic relief characters, or even vaguely similar. I feel like that's not the right phrase for. She knows when to have levity in a situation, even when others look to her to be cheered up following the tree's destruction. She is level-headed. She doesn't try to make a joke out of something that's serious, and I feel like pre-season 5, Pinkie would have made a joke out of that situation. Rarity's here, so Rarity has a few moments that are like pretty good. I feel like she has the best sewing in She's All Yak, mostly because she's just willing to be very generous with Yona. Even if it's not technically the best thing, she should be encouraging to have to change herself. But that's just a Yona perception issue and not really Rarity's fault for trying to help her, or any of the other main 6 who are helping throughout that episode actually. Starlight. Obviously she's our 7th main character. She's pretty well represented. She gets some time to herself on screen, which is good. I feel like probably less than she should have for being a main character. She probably should have been helping more with some stuff here at the start of the season, but she didn't. And that's just how they wrote it, because she isn't as marketable, I guess. But I did find it cool when she hung out with her friends and they expanded on her job duties and social life. For the young 6 characters, we will go into their characterizations. The most well fleshed out member of the young 6, in my opinion, was Yona this half. Yona gets a few major sewings, and I really like how they turned out. I really like that she is into preserving the memory of the tree without doing anything too extravagant. I feel like that's a lot more realistic. I think she's such a fun, sweet character. And She's All Yak, it kind of explores more of the Yak mentality where if you are in another location, you must conform to that location's customs, regardless of how your customs are different or how you may express yourself differently. She already is best at being Yak, in her own words, but she's not best pony. So she becomes a pony, and the others regret helping her do that because they didn't realize how somewhat damaging that is. She feels she has to drop her identity where she goes other places. But the Yaks are very conformist. You must be like them, or they must be like you. It's very strict that way. There's Gallus. He doesn't do too much this half of the season, really. He's just a good bud there. I mean, it is obvious that he's a griffin in Uprooted when he does like sell tours of the cave where the tree was before the end of the episode. Like, he has those. Silverstream has an interesting moment. I think it's cool that we learn more about cockatrices through her, and that she's sort of learning to be more independent. I don't know if it's just me, but she's very much reliant on having others around her to bounce off of. She's very energetic and social. So she's learning a little bit more about how to do stuff on her own, and I like that. I like the characterization of Ocelis. We don't get to see much of her, unfortunately. She's cute. I like that she wants to meditate and just kind of roughly mull over her feelings over it. I think it's really cool to see her use her shape, like her changeling powers. She doesn't do too much either outside of Uprooted. This is a common theme. Sandbar is pretty okay here. I do have a little bit of a qualm with what he did with the tree, just throwing it away. Seems wildly disrespectful. Let's just say mad disrespect to the tree on that one. And yes, things were made right in the end, but what if he'd actually gotten rid of it for good? Like, what was the plan then? You know? So Smolder is very well represented here as well. I really like her characterization. It's cool to see her interact with her brother, which felt like such an odd add-in. He had been mentioned in season 8, but he didn't seem all that important, but I do really appreciate the episode we got with her. I think it was cool to examine more of the slightly flawed areas of dragon mentality. We have our next set of characters, the Legion of Doom, aka Grogar, Cozy Glow, Tyrek, and Sombra. Grogar himself poses an interesting threat as a villain. He's a sit back and watch the henchmen do the job kind of villain. And outside of any future spoilers for other parts of the season, he is interesting in and of how he's introduced. It's interesting that he's like the emperor. I think that Cozy Glow is pretty interesting. She definitely is mostly through the character arc of pretending she's nice. She's really sugarcoating who she is and hiding who she was in season 8. And here she's dropping the facade. She's around a lot of other people who are morally questionable, and she doesn't care to maintain her appearance anymore as this sweet, kind little girl, which is seen at the summit when she's attempting to climb the mountain to get to Grogar's Bell. So it's interesting to see her go from hiding who she is to just being transparent about being a bad person. Tyrek, he's pretty interesting. He's quite divisive, I'd say, on his characterization for people, mostly because the more power he gets, the dumber he gets. This is like a canon thing. The more power you give him, the less intelligent he is on how to use it. Not that he's stupid, just slightly less intuitive and good at making plans. He's interesting because he has the closest bond with Cozy Glow of the group, so he kind of, even when he's butting with the others, he doesn't butt or hate on her too much. Chrysalis is a hater of all things. She's such a hater as a character as far as all that goes. I really think that's interesting that she's pretty much her same kooky self. She's also kind of like a petty mom if you in the dynamic of this team now. And then there's Sombra, who isn't really a part of the Legion of Doom, but he's a part of the villains, so he's coming up here. He is interestingly characterized. He's definitely a huge departure from the comics, if you understand what I'm talking about. I really like that he is a substantial threat on his own, even if he is fairly easily defeated the first time, and then actually defeated in a fairly easily manner when he's genuinely defeated. He does actually have the ability to carry out a major level plan and almost get away with it after all. I will still miss the character that he has in the comics, but those two can exist separately. Celestia and Luna get some really great moments this season. I really liked Celestia's characterization, and Luna's about equally. Celestia is so fun. I like that she's a bit of a thrill seeker. I think that's a fun character trait to give like the prim and proper characters. I like that Luna's still very down to earth and she likes relaxing. It's very in line with how she's represented in other media outside this show. So it doesn't feel like it's retroactively going against anything. Discord is a pill. That's his character arc pill. And that's alright. He thinks that he should start helping in divine ways in the same context Celestia does because he fancies himself a leader. And I'm going to count Starswirl the Bearded as one of the last of this crew to talk about because he's the only pillar that gets major attention here. I really like Starswirl the Bearded actually working with Celestia and Luna. I like that it changed their mindset to work with him and they actually started getting more involved in their community, especially near their old stomping ground. So that's pretty cool. I like how he's changed and grown as a character. Wish they could have done more with the pillars. I always do, though. Voice acting. The voice acting here is quite solid. I do have my qualm with how King Sombra sounds, but it's not because the voice acting's bad. It's just because it's not what I wanted. He has such a jerkwad voice. I feel like the more he talks, the less threatening he becomes. And this is no qualm to the voice actor or anything. It's just I really wanted him to have a different vibe to his voice if he did have full sentences, or maintain that just like grunting and evil laughter. I think that was actually pretty interesting for a villain to not be monologuing. We also see the return of a few celebrity VAs. We see Pat and Oswald return to voice Quibblepants in this season, and they expand on it. His young daughter at the time, 8 years old. I'm not going to say her name or show her face because I don't like showing kids in my videos. It's weird. C does the daughter wind sprint, and C's so cute. I like her. I know her character isn't the nicest, but I do like her. It's just so refreshing to hear children voice children characters sometimes. And this is a way to do it where they're not overworked. I think that was kind of cute that his girlfriend at the time was voice acting, well, the character's girlfriend, so that was nice. I just think it's funny that we get Australian accents, which implies there's the equivalent of Australia in Equestria. Not exactly sure what that means for us as the audience. The animation. So the animation here basically doesn't have any inherent flaws. It is very expressive, smooth, it's well lit, it's well stated. I think every character has extremely animated faces, and for animation, it's nice to see them have less rigid faces in general. The early seasons definitely didn't have the budget to pull this off, and they're really still trying to figure out what proportions were normal then. So here you really see it like look so good. This is proof that you can make 2D puppet rig really nice looking on a fairly cheap budget. Another thing about the animation is they utilize this a lot where they differ the art styles, and I love it when the art style differs because they do such a good job with it. I think Sparkle 7 has some of the greatest sequences of fun dynamic art style used throughout the show, and it pops up in a few other places outside of that, but I think it just is best utilized there. For our world building, they do a pretty damn good job. I like that other places are represented fairly and nicely. I really appreciate the efforts they go through for it. Capper shows up in the background. I think that they do a good job exploring places, making it feel more expansive. Having developments like senior care was nice. So for our music section, we have a few things. The first song of the season is The Place Where We Belong from Uprooted. It's a good song, it fits well with the narrative. I'm not sure all the voice actors and actresses did the greatest job singing it, so re-listenability isn't great, but it fits well for what it's intended to do. Fit Right In from Seasal Yak kind of has the same problem, but it's a really fun song to look at, and I would say that it's interesting messaging wise on the lyrics, but overall still a good song from the show. A Better Way to Be Bad is pretty cool from Frenemy, or just a fun song. It has dynamic visuals and the vocals are really good amongst that group of characters in my opinion. Hearing Tarek sing is just wild to me, but it's a good 1980s cartoon villain song, if you know what I'm talking about, not like a Chrysalis villain song alone, if you understand the vibes there being different. Our last song is Lot of Little Things from Between Dark and Dawn. So these ones are pretty good. I really liked these songs. This is probably my favorite of this half, and almost my favorite of the entire. It's probably because the singing talent of Celestia and Luna's voice actresses is pretty much unmatched. So now for my first impression. By the time I really got around to watching the season, it had been over for a few years, and because it wasn't on Netflix, I didn't have cable, and I didn't have any of the other streaming services it was on, I didn't get to enjoy it until it was put on Hulu, and I remember taking it episode by episode to absorb it. They had the first half, I think, when we got Hulu, and then they added the second half later, or something. It was weird. Okay, Hulu's deal with My Little Pony streaming, which is over now, was never quite made sense to me. But I really loved these episodes. The ones I came back to the most were definitely things like Between Dark and Dawn. The ones in the latter half I also come back to a lot, but that's for that part. This leads us into, finally, the episodes themselves. There's a lot to cover. Our first episode, The Beginning of the End, has its plot follow Twilight and her friends as they have been urgently called to Canterlot by the princesses, who announce that they are retiring from ruling Equestria. They want Twilight to take their place in a few days, which makes her extremely paranoid. Meanwhile, Queen Chrysalis, Lord Tyrek, Cozy Glow, and a reincarnated King Sombra are summoned by the ancient villain Grogar, an evil goat ram who was the original emperor of the land that is now Equestria. He proposes that they all work together in order to defeat Twilight and her friends and take over the kingdom of Equestria. However, Sombra rejects Grogar's offer and sets out to reclaim the Crystal Empire on his own. Though he succeeds in enslaving every pony, including the leader, Twilight and her friends arrive and easily defeat him with the elements of harmony. They venture back to the tree to return said element, but Sombra suddenly appears and destroys the tree with the elements. So my thought, this is a really fun start to the season. I was so caught off guard having this be how the season starts. A lot happens. It kind of left me feeling I was watching the episode right after they defeated King Sombra in the first half uneasy. How are they going to make this a two-parter? But they definitely carry through on that two-parter element. I found really upset when I first saw that the tree got destroyed. It kind of still is hard to watch, I'll level with ya. So the next part is the beginning of the end, part 2. The plot follows King Sombra as he reveals his plan to Twilight and her friends. He had faked his death in order to find and destroy the source of their power. He traps them in the cave and moves on by claiming Ponyville by mind controlling all the townsfolk and sending them to lay siege to Canterlot. The group manages to escape and head to town, but they are blocked by living plants from the Everfree Forest. Celestia and Luna arrive alongside Star Swirl the Bearded to help stop said plants. The group quickly heads to Canterlot, confronting Sombra. They are unable to fight back without the elements, so Discord appears and easily outdoes Sombra's magic attacks, but pretends to get injured by intercepting a full blast, heading towards Fluttershy. After a sentimental speech, Twilight and her friends come together saying that they are the embodiments that represent friendship itself and that can never be taken away, and they defeat Sombra once more. Celestia and Luna congratulate them on their victory. They apologize to Twilight for placing her in a position of power too quickly. Grogar regroups with the remaining villains, using Sombra's defeat as a warning to them to listen to him. My thoughts. This has some great Pinky moments right off the bat. I think Pinky having levity, like I mentioned, in characterization is really nice. I think it was really interesting to see all the main six's reaction to their friends and family being mind controlled, because it was so sad, but like it really showed how connected Ponyville is to them. I think it was awesome to see Celestia and Luna actually helping out in a direct manner, or I guess the aid to Star Swirl the Bearded, which is just awesome. The animation was so great this episode, like the peak. I think it kind of peaks until the end of the season at this stage. Like, this is as good as it gets until the last 3 episodes. Anyway, moving on. The next episode is Uprooted. The plot follows young six, which are visited by the spiritual embodiment of Twilight, who says the Tree of Harmony needs. After they learn from Twilight herself that the tree has been destroyed, they decide to memorialize it. However, they have conflicting ideas on how to honor the tree, resulting in a big mess where it once stood. Yona urges the others to remember that the tree united them as friends, which the group uses the remains of said tree to rebuild, to make a tree house, which isn't very good. Much to their surprise, the new tree begins to burst upward through the cave floor and tear a hole in the ceiling, creating an even larger tree house in the grounds of the Castle of Two Sisters. The spirit of the tree appears to them before saying the tree can serve a sanctuary for them and future generations. Twilight realizes that the tree is still alive and adapting to whatever Equestria needs it to be. My thoughts. I really like this as it follows up directly on the tree being destroyed. I think is very important to bring the young six in on this, given their roles in previous seasons. I'm very happy that we get to see them like explore the different ways they would consider honoring it, even if some of them are somewhat destructive or messy. Obviously, Yona's a standout. I like that Thorax keeps track of Ocelis. This is also where we get to see Silverstream actually interact with her mom for like a split second. I swear, this is the only time I see them on screen together or something. She mentions her mom, but she definitely doesn't spend time with her in main so very often. The screen time's limited for that. I think this was fun. The next episode is Sparkle 7. The plot follows Signing Armor summoning Twilight to Canterlot in order to settle their childhood sibling supreme competition once and for all. Having implemented a new set of security measures around Canterlot Castle, he challenges Twilight to breach them and steal the tinfoil crown from the throne room. Twilight devises a plan with her friends, only for Signing Armor to boast by letter that he already has guessed her plan and knows how to work around her. Rarity suggests that the members do the opposite of what he might expect, and their plans all ultimately fail, so they end up going back to Twilight's original strategy, which is somewhat successful until they reach the throne room, only to be intercepted by Signing Armor, Princess Celestia, and Princess Luna. Signing Armor gloats over his perceived victory when Spike suddenly reveals that he has the crown, which he had passed to him by Luna, who had devised a plan to work together following disagreements he had with her sister and castle security. Twilight and Signing Armor award the crown to Spike, acknowledging him as the sibling supreme and their little brother. My thoughts. This is a really interesting one, because a lot of people say that the voice actresses had some level of say in the episode and the overall plot, and I do believe it. It's pretty fun. I could have sworn I heard someone call this the 200th episode at one time, but the wiki doesn't reflect that, so it's just, I do find the way the plot is covered really funny, because there's a few things that are good. It's really weird to see Zephyr Breeze be hired for this. It's implied that, well, I presume Spike was like, hey, I know of a douchebag who's terrible at his job. Let's get him. It would have been even better if guards were good at their jobs prior to this, but the guards and the increased security around Canterlot is appreciated, so we also probably have one of the most iconic screen shots of Luna to ever exist in the show with that, like, it's so weird that they're bald to me, but okay. I think it's really interesting how they have the sibling supreme thing because they tend to promote a little bit too much competition amongst the children in Twilight's family, in my opinion. Like sibling supreme. Oh yes, that's basically saying you have a favorite sibling of your kids and that you're going to pick one of them. But this does confirm that Spike is at least a little brother to Shining Armor to some degree, so that's good. To her, she's kind of a mix of a mother figure and a sister to him at times, especially as he gets more independent, so he becomes more sisterly to him. But once he's first out on her own with Spike, he's more motherly. So it's just an interesting dynamic. Or kind of when he's a servant, which makes me uncomfortable, I'll be honest, even if he likes. The next episode is The Point of No Return. The plot follows Twilight while going through a box of her old things sent by Princess Celestia, finding an old library book she had borrowed many years ago from the Canterlot Library. Accompanied by Spike, she hurries to the library to return her book, just to find out the old head librarian, Dusty Pages, no longer works there, believing that she was fired over the book. Both Twilight and Dusty had perfect records prior to this point with book borrowing, so she fears that her loss is what cost Dusty her job. She and Spike track Dusty down to a retirement community where she's participating in several activities and refuses to take the book or really have anything to do with libraries anymore. She explains that she was so worried about keeping her perfect book record that she never had a chance to enjoy much of her life. After the book went missing, she quit voluntarily and began finding her own happiness, and Twilight returns to Canterlot and returns the book and pays the overdue fines, 28-bit, where she finally internalizes the message of the book. It's not so important to try to make everything perfect. My thoughts. I really like this episode. The primary messaging itself is solid, because perfectionists, they be struggling. I'm not one, but there are people who are. And I don't know how you guys live your lives, because perfectionism is so scary that to think that you might get stuck, that you can't do something because it might be wrong. It's a lot. I think it was really cool to see Dusty Pages be such like a fun old lady, I guess, if that sounds right. It was really interesting just how vibrant her community was. I remember when some people misheard this and thought Celestia and Luna would move there for retirement, which honestly they'd fit right in, but I don't think that they don't end up moving there. It's a different location that starts with silver. The next episode is Common Ground. The plot follows Rainbow Dash visiting Appaloosa to cheer on the Ponyville team in a buckball tournament. She ends up encouraging her friend Quibblepants, who has started dating a unicorn mare named Clear Skies, to win Sprint, her Pegasus daughter, from her late husband, to enjoy sports. Quibblepants knows absolutely nothing, but buys her book, Almanac, and lets Rainbow Dash try to mold him into a sports enthusiast/athlete. All these attempts ultimately fail to win Sprint's approval and also make him more embarrassed progressively. Rainbow Dash's plans culminate in having Quibblepants win Sprint and Clear Skies play against the Ponyville team in a buckball tournament, much to Quibblepants embarrassing himself because he's barely able to take on the team. Winsprint storms off the field, and he later apologizes to both Sky and Winsprint for trying too hard to impress them. After the three reconcile, they settle down to actually enjoy the tournament together, and he finds some fun facts from the Almanac to teach Winsprint more about the sport. My thoughts. I found this fun. It's kind of interesting that we continue to develop the buckball thing even many seasons on. I guess they figured that will be one of the carry-throughs they're going to have if they're wrapping up plot lines. Why not carry through the Ponyville buckball thing? It's kind of funny to see some of these characters again, because it felt like we wouldn't see too much of them. Celebrity VAs are expensive. This is also one of those episodes where the background characters have peak designs for some reason. This is like a common trait through the last 3 seasons or so, but they do a really good job with background and side characters with more fun and dynamic designs that aren't necessarily budget breaking. There's not too much to say about an episode about sports as someone who's also bad at sport, mostly because I don't try. The next episode is Seize All Yak. The plot follows Twilight at the School of Friendship announcing that they're going to be hosting a party called the Amity Ball, which Sandbar asks Yona to. She accepts being his pony pal to the dance, and believes that she now needs to act more like a pony in order to impress him. This prompts her to seek out Rarity's advice on how to behave like a pony, and through several tactics, ranging from Rarity making her dress, teaching her how to speak properly, and Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash teaching her some dance moves. Additionally, Applejack and Pinkie Pie teaching her how to make some more pony-style treats to bring to the dance. Yona ends up going as the pinnacle of Pony Yona. However, while attending the dance, Yona ends up embarrassing herself and becoming her own obstacle because her pony enhancements have become an obstacle to her dancing. She exits ashamed, and Sandbar catches up to her saying that he invited her to the dance because he likes her for who she is, a yak. Touched by his word, Yona and Sandbar arrive back at the dance. 5 of the main 6 apologize for Yona for turning her into something she's not. Twilight declares Sandbar and Yona the winners of the Pony Pal contest, and the episode ends. So, my thoughts. I found this a fascinating episode in some ways, but it's mostly because it's very retroactive to add in the existence of the Fetlock Fet, which is basically what the Amity Ball is based off of here. Not exactly, but partially, because I feel like this should have come up before. Seems like a semi-yearly event, or at least a yearly event they're referencing deeply ingrained traditions and things that ponies are all aware of in this town. So why is it just now coming up? I think Yona's really cute, and Sandbar, I've pretty much talked about what I need to there. I feel like the segments were very visually dynamic in this episode, though, so that was nice. I really don't have too much else to say about this episode. So the next episode is Frenemies. The plot follows Grogar, sending out Chrysalis, Tyrk, and Cozy Glow on a task of retrieving his bewitching bell, which has been taken from him a long time ago, hidden at the top of Mount Everhoof, but warns them that they must work together in order to accomplish this goal. Scoffing at Cozy Glow's plan to team up, Chrysalis and Tyrk move ahead separately. However, Cozy Glow fails to talk her way past the guard in the avalanche zone, while Chrysalis is unable to fly up the mountains alone. That evening, all the others reconvene and argue with each other about what to do, and begin just to find out that Tyrk didn't even venture out in the first place to try on his own because he figured it was a foregone conclusion. They eventually figure out that they can help each other and reach the peak by working together. Tyrk temporarily borrows Chrysalis's magic in order to open up the force field protecting the bell, and Cozy Glow removes it from it. This success, they choose to not. They reject the possibility of becoming real friends and decide to hide the bell from Grogar, intending to use it against him later. My thoughts. So I thought this was really cool. It's really good to see the villains pop back up in between seasons. I think this is something the latter seasons do better, where the villains aren't just an issue for the first episode and maybe the last one sometimes, where they kind of do stuff in between. They have other things they're planning. They don't just wait for however long a season takes. I think that seeing Mount Everhoof was a fun reference to Mount Everest. I think them work together was cool, although I would be lying if I told you it isn't a little disturbing to see Chrysalis do something to get food, if you know what I mean. It's just a little uncomfortable. But other than that, it's a pretty fun episode. So the next episode is Sweet and Smoky. The plot follows Smolder, accompanied by Fluttershy and Spike, taking a week off from class to visit her brother and attempt to cheer him up in the Dragonland. To Spike and Fluttershy's dismay, her brother turns out to be Garble, who delights in bullying Spike, and Fluttershy and Smolder separately confront his friends over their behavior. Fluttershy later finds out that Garble is secretly writing beat poetry, but is afraid to perform in public due to his fear of being ridiculed secretly by his friends. Meanwhile, Ember is worried about the clutches of Dragon Egg taking too long to hatch, and Spike discovers that the grounds are too cold for the eggs to develop because Garble and his friends had been draining the underground lava reserve that had been used to previously heat them up for lava surfing and swimming. Encouraged by Smolder, Garble performs his poetry for the other dragons, causing them to laugh so hard that their flames are even hotter, and the eggs hatch. Ember that her subjects should start celebrating their differences rather than making fun of them. Seeing several other dragons ask Garble to teach them how to write poetry. So my thoughts. This episode is definitely a nice one for Smolder. I think it's pretty cool to see her brother actually fleshed out, because I remember back in the day someone saying, "Oh, I wonder who her brother is." So I guess it's Garble, which caught me off guard at the time, but it's still pretty neat. I think the dragon egg situation is pretty interesting, because it's kind of weird to think that dragons leave a bunch of children to watch their eggs. That's so smart, right? Because I'm presuming what we've been able to gather from dragon society is that dragons raise them after they hatch up until they get to puberty when they have wings. So interesting that they have teenagers watch them while hatching. I guess they just can't be bothered, or it's just that the grounds are ideal, and that's where the other dragons happen to be. I think that it's really weird to see Garble be nice at all to anyone, which he's not really that nice, but I feel like he's less of a jerk, I guess. Other than that, I found it interesting that the dragons bully each other for being different, when honestly they don't seem all that bad about actual differences. They just don't seem to like ponyisms and pony mentalities. So I wouldn't really say they so much bully each other for being different. They just bully each other for being... I mean, I still remember their introduction where they were nice to a dragon that was different from them. They're like, oh, that's just Crackle, you know? We like Crackle. So I found that interesting. The next episode is Going to Sea. The plot follows the Apple family mobilizing to bring an enormous apple harvest in when Granny Smith calls on Goldie Delicious for additional help. Goldie tells Apple Bloom the story of the Great Seedling. It says that if someone is able to catch the Great Seedling, they are going to be blessed with abundant crops forever. So Apple Bloom takes it upon herself to capture the Great Seedling, much to Applejack's dismay and annoyance. She tries to catch it because she had attempted to catch it when she was young and got trapped in her own trap and felt guilty about being unable to help with the rest of the harvest. Apple Bloom persuades Applejack to rekindle her old determination and help her catch the Great Seedling, leaving an extremely tired Big Mac to do the vast majority of the harvesting by himself. And an apparent chase begins through the orchard one night with the two sisters, revealing that Big Mac has been harvesting apples in his sleep in order to keep up with the workload, and the harvest is finished ahead of time, but there's a mysterious thing left behind of a trail of carrots that may or may not be the Great Seedling. My thoughts. This episode's really sweet. I like seeing Goldie Delicious and Granny Smith interact, because every time they interact, it's really cool. They do it in the Equestria Girl Sorts, and it's really cool. The Great Seedling is such a cool concept. I love the art associated with it. It's very whimsical. I kind of felt bad for Big Mac because he was really taking the brunt of the work this episode. Really, no one else was helping him past like the first day or so. And part of the fact he's so tired was his own fault. I guess he gets so anxious about the harvest that he sleep harvested, you know? The flashback to AJ's parents was really cool. It's cool to see her like being a youngest fool about the same size as currently Apple Bloom is, and baby Apple Bloom is so cute, and little Big Mac with the dad. It's all so cute to see them together. So I loved that. I think that it's pretty cool that we get to see all the cat hijinks too. I think it's funny that another thing is we get to see Winona, and I felt like the pets kind of disappeared for most of the characters for a while there, so seeing Winona again is really good. The next episode is Student Council. The plot follows Starlight as he tries to spend a day off Trixie but keeps leaving in order to help students wrap at the end of school. She finally ties off her workload because the students had been sent home for spring break and closes campus, so she and Trixie can attend Maud's cave party. Suddenly, Silverstream's brother Tomar arrives at the party, saying that Silverstream never made it home to Mount Eric, and he and Starlight find the note indicating that she may have been doing research on the cockatrice. Tomar, Starlight, Trixie, Sunburst, Maud, and Mudbriar enter the Everfree Forest in search of Silverstream, but a flock of cockatrices chases after them and petrifies Mudbriar. The group takes shelter in the castle of Two Sisters when they realize that Silverstream must be at the Crystal Tree House. The group finds her safe and sound doing research with the help of a cockatrice named Eden, who apologizes, and Silverstream apologizes for not informing anyone of her plans earlier. Mudbriar recovers from his petrification, and Starlight resolves that she won't let her professional responsibilities take up too much of her personal life. My thoughts. So this episode's kind of cool. I think it's nice to see the school more in action, other students doing stuff. Definitely makes it feel quite alive there. I'm not sure how to feel about Maud liking Mudbriar as a statue made out of stone. I don't know what that says about her. She does like rocks. I don't know. Silverstream's brother popping up was nice, although it's a little weird to think that none of her parents picked her up, or that guardian from the beginning of season 8, or anyone else. I guess, consult Starlight, but really? Is this something she does frequently, where she'll, get an idea and just kind of run off, so they just send her brother to find her? I thought this was pretty interesting. Also, kudos to Rose Luck for trying to do a stick with flowers on it at their request, because the girl's trying her best with what she was asked for, right? So, our next episode is The Last Crusade. The plot follows the Cutie Crusaders hanging out at Scootaloo's house when one of their mentees shows up ecstatic about his cutie mark. Just then, a postcard arrives saying that Scoot's parents are coming home. Snap, Sutter, and Maine all good. They have been traveling extensively to study equestrian wildlife, leaving Scootaloo in the care of her aunt Holiday and Lofty, amongst a few others throughout Ponyville. Scootaloo gets a chance to enjoy hanging out with them. They give her the shocking news that they want her to move to Sri Lanka with them for their new job so they can be together. The Crusaders devise several strategies to keep Scootaloo in Ponyville, but Snap, Sutter, and Main Oldgood choose to push ahead of their plans regardless of Scootaloo's things. They sell their house in preparation to move, and during a visit to Aunt Holiday in Lofty's place, the Crusaders find out that they have inspired Lofty to break her creative drought, and C gives them the quilt theme so they can sew just how important it is. They return to Ponyville, where a party has been arranged to show how important the Crusaders' success is and how Scootaloo is a part of that. Snapsutter and Main Allgood yield to Scootaloo's wishes and allow her to stay in Ponyville with her aunts as full-time guardians who end up purchasing the house, and they look after her. My thoughts. I like this episode. I think that the ants are really cute design. I love it when we see like a variation in the mares, especially design-wise, because they didn't get enough variation. I found the Australian thing funny. Like, where's Pony Australia? Okay, I want to know. Or I guess maybe New Zealand's a possibility, but they feel Australian, so I'm gonna err on that side. It's cool that we get to see just the impact of the Crusaders. It's also cool to just briefly see Gabby and Tomar interact. I thought that was really fun. I really thought this was cool. I think her parents are jerks a little bit. They leave their kid with other people consistently, and they get mad when she's become attached to the place she's been her whole life, as if that's a bad thing. Like, oh, you'll get used to it, Scoot. I do think they're quite negligent in endangering her. Like, they brought multiple creatures that were unsafe to where they were to pick up Scootaloo effectively. That's so wild. The next episode is Between Dark and Dawn. The plot follows the main six as they're battling against Turtle Thingy attacking Applejack's farm and amongst some other things. Princess Celestia and Luna start taking it upon themselves to take a more active role in Ponyville, to the point where they become somewhat of a nuisance. Twilight persuades them to take a vacation and leave her and her friends in charge of Equestria, including the sun and moon cycle for that duration. The group becomes overwhelmed for planning for the royal swanifying ceremony. Meanwhile, the princesses enjoy the first half of their vacation, giving each other turns, doing what they like. Cutting back to Twilight and crew, Twilight has taken it upon herself to do everything by herself for the royal swanifying ceremony, and everything's going wrong, as tensions rise between Celestia and Luna over what sort of activities they should try. So they split up and vacation separately, where they end up reconciling, admitting that they may be overreacted. Returning to Canterlot, Twilight delegates out her duties, and they get the royal swanification ceremony underway, but she cannot properly move the moon and sun correctly, and Celestia and Luna fly back to help her. My thoughts. I love this episode. I love this episode. I watched it probably too many times. I think seeing the sisters interact with each other is always a Benny, so I will take my Benny where I get it. I think it's Twilight's reaction to breaking the sundial's hilarious. I like that we saw Capper in the background, and we referenced Mount Eris in a few places. I really wished actually we'd seen the sisters go to Mount Eris. Their vacation activities are really fun. I think Goth Celestia was a mood in 80s. Luna, the fact that Luna didn't know what sunscreen was has been brought up by other people, but I thought it's really funny because he really doesn't interact with the sun enough to need sunscreen in most scenarios. But this also implies that ponies regularly wear sunscreen in order to avoid major sunburn. So that's even more wild to me. I like that Celestia really wouldn't want to rule on her own if she has a choice in doing so. But also the swans were really funny, and Fancy Pants could have been a little nicer to the main six in this episode. Also, Derpy cameo. We get some good Derpy acts in here. Anyway, that rounds out this main part of our video. I hope you enjoyed. This took forever to make, and this is like take 5 because life is getting in the way. It's really fun to like watch this season over and work on the video, and I'm sorry it's late in advance, I know it is. Hopefully check out all the resources I put in the description if you have any questions about where I got something from, because it's all there. You can watch this for free on Tubi, and you can also watch it for free on YouTube. It's no longer on Hulu, so these are all options for you if you want to re-experience Season 9. I really love it. I hope you do too. If you enjoy my content, consider subscribing to receive continued My Little Pony content. Bye! Daisy Spine, signing out.